Hey, we're back with the Metalblade podcast. I'm Vince from Metalblade Records, and who else we have here, man?
I am Riley McShane from Allegaeon.
And I am Ryan Williams, also from metalblade Records.
You know, I feel like we should explain why that was as awkward as it was. It's because we're all very far away from each other right now.
In our respective homes.
Yeah. All hanging out, doing the remote working thing.
So we relaunched this Metalblade podcast a few months back, and we got a few episodes in the can. But then all of this coronavirus stuff happened, and we felt that it would be weird just to launch these episodes where we don't even mention it. So we're doing a redo of the first episode so we can kind of address all the current happenings, and it doesn't seem like we're living on Mars or something. And so we could kind of talk about everything that's going on and address it. So this is actually, what's the date today? The 4th? Or no,
it's April
the 6th of April.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing, right? Working from home.
No idea what day it is.
The concept of dates and times really don't matter. It's kind of nice because I'm kind of working, I'm working during the day when I usually do, but I'm also coming back to projects at night or taking long breaks during the day just to keep my head clear, because especially when you live and work in the same place, you start to get a little stuffy, right?
Totally.
So yeah, it's been fun to kind of manage that, and thankfully I enjoy working from home. So for me, the adjustment isn't huge, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that really are going through some pretty significant adjustments to life working from home.
Well, and we're just lucky that we have jobs that we are able to work from home. I mean, obviously the restaurant business, a lot of different businesses, record stores. I mean, almost everything has been hit super hard. And especially touring, which is, one thing that is very relevant to us. All the tours have basically been canceled through at least June, as far as I'm aware. Riley, you've had a tour cancel, no?
Yeah, we were supposed to start tour 4 days from now. And then go through like the first week of May. But yeah, that is postponed. We're working on trying to get it back on for like third quarter of this year.
Yeah.
But it's, who knows at this point. It's like such a total mystery. That's the worst part about this whole thing, is that it's like, I think the last I heard, like the most recent thing to get everything back on track and get the economy going again is not necessarily a test for if you currently have COVID-19, but if you have had it,
the antibodies.
Right. They think it's like a chicken pox type of thing, where it's like if you have had it and you are fine and non-symptomatic anymore, then like you're not going to pass it to anyone else and you can return to the workforce.
Right.
So ideally that will be rolling out soon, like within the next month or so. And then, things can kind of start returning to normalcy. But at the same time, it's like, if none of my band or touring crew or any of the people on the band, all it takes is like one or two people to like fail that test, so to speak, to be like, oh, well, I never had it. Like, I guess I'm still at risk, to still like throw a wrench into everything. So it's definitely been a trying time, but it's also been kind of cool because it's like seeing how all these creative people are coming up with creative solutions to like still work and still do stuff instead of just like coming to a crashing halt,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we put out the Allegaeon cover of Yes's Roundabout just this past Friday. And the plan was to have that out to help promote the fact that you were all on tour. So that's the other thing, too, is we have things on the release schedule that they're too soon on the schedule to move. And no one's really sure if we need to move things yet. And certainly some things on our release schedule are definitely moving in response to this. But yeah, like you said, we put out 2 videos on Friday to promote Roundabout. So yeah, we're still releasing really cool videos, and a lot of people are streaming. Like Devin Townsend is releasing a bunch of tracks. He had Fetty from Destrage, who Riley, you talked to for one of the first episodes of this podcast, come back at NAMM. So they're collaborating over obviously vast distances and electronically. It's pretty cool to see the people that are taking advantage of this. And I really hope we'll see more musicians take to things platforms like Twitch.
Yeah. I actually just did a similar collaboration with my friend who plays drums for Venom Inc. He's doing this cool like song in a day thing.
Yeah, Jeremy Kling.
Yeah, Jeremy Kling, exactly.
Yeah, he drummed in The Absence. I worked with him.
He did drum in The Absence.
I played with him in Necromancing the Stone.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, and we worked with him again then.
Yep.
Yeah,
well,
he's a good dude.
He hit me up. It's funny that I like totally forgot that despite having toured with Necromancing the Stone with him playing drums. I was like, oh, how did I meet that guy? Oh, yeah. But he hit me up to do like this cool song in a day project that he's doing where he does like one style of metal like every day, every other day. And the day I did was a Florida death metal song. I just wrote the lyrics and recorded from home in a day and sent it to him, and it was super fun. And it's it was a cool way to like bring other musicians together that might not work with each other if things were like still operating normally. You have just on that track it was myself and then Taylor Nordberg, who plays bass for Soilwork when they're touring. Taylor also played in Necromancing the Stone for that tour.
Yep.
And then Chase Bryant, who plays bass for Warbringer. He also played bass for Oni, who we toured with. And then me on vocals. So it's like, it's cool, just like dudes that I haven't seen in forever. And then if you look at the other people that are in that little project that he's doing, it's just tons of people from all over the world, really, that are just doing all these like fun little kind of out of the box styles of death metal. So it's really neat seeing everybody come together in this kind of trying time.
Yeah, I mean, we still have the internet. We still have ways to collaborate and make things. So it's not like creativity has to come to a halt. You know what I mean? And I think people are at home and they wanna hear new stuff. Like the Code Orange kind of did that live stream when their album came out, and I think they had probably planned that out beforehand, and it kind of came right as the shutdown was coming in. That stream was just far too professional to be a last minute thing, right? It was
one of the better live streams I've ever seen a band do.
Yeah, and that was perfect. And I think we're going to see maybe not stuff like that because bands can't necessarily all be in the same room easily, but just more utilization of streaming in general. And, I'm seeing people every day now go live on IG and Facebook, and, Slagle's been doing that and people are really liking it. So I think we're going to finally see all of this technology that was kind of on the periphery start to come into focus and people really figure out how to use it. And there's a lot of bands that are still kind of on the fence and like looking at it and waiting to see, but the more tech savvy people I think are jumping in and just using it, like exactly like you said, that collaboration that you were just involved in. That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, it's super fun. And it's I've been Twitch streaming for years, as we talked about in prior episodes. And it's just really cool seeing, like, I've had tons of people, within my field, bands that I've toured with and, just dudes that I am, talk to in the death metal scene, hit me up for like lessons on how to set up Streamlabs, OBS, and like how to get your Twitch all hooked up and all that kind of stuff. And it's just super cool seeing all these dudes, move their viral marketing into that direction, because it's been there for such a long time. And like you said, it's just kind of been on the periphery because it's, hard to fit learning something like that into a schedule of really any kind. But now that nobody has a schedule really of any kind, it's neat seeing everyone, just utilize the tools that we have.
Yeah, and I think one of the things bands that I've found tend to fear about streaming is that, bands have a lot of contact with the public through things like Twitter and Instagram. And sometimes it's not always positive. And I think what I've found with streaming is that the people that tune into a stream and converse are overwhelmingly positive compared to random Instagram comments. So I think there's a little bit of bands are afraid to do it, but once they do it once or twice, they realize it's actually a pretty fun experience. And people that are on Twitch like new people joining Twitch because you're kind of joining almost a subculture in a way, right? And the reason I'm so confident even labeling it as such is I was at TwitchCon 2019 and I saw Dragon Force play there, and people that worked at TwitchWorks cited that people from Metal Blade were there, and it really did have a vibe that people are really loyal to Twitch as a brand.
Totally.
Yeah, it was really being at TwitchCon during the opening ceremonies where they're talking about the platform and all the things they're going to be doing to make it better, and then the crowd applauses was like something out of a movie where it's a few steps away from a cult. You know what I mean? It was it was weird. It was like kind of surreal, but it wasn't bad at all. I think there are a lot of bad companies out there, and so far my experience with Twitch is pretty positive, I'd say.
Yeah,
and it's far easier. Like the numbers you need to generate revenue on YouTube are in the millions.
Right.
To generate any amount of real ad share revenue, it takes a long time. Whereas Twitch, the barrier to entry for affiliate status is relatively low.
And even if you don't have affiliate status, you can, if you know the ins and outs of like, partnered apps like Streamlabs and Stream Elements and all that kind of stuff, you can start generating revenue immediately, like right out the gate. You can set up a donation button in your bio and, set up a chat bot to be like, oh, click here to donate to the stream kind of thing. Affiliate status really, of, the revenue that I do make on Twitch, limited as it may be, 90% of it comes from that donation button.
And that's true too. Yeah. A lot of streamers do have donations outside of anything involving Twitch. Yeah. Which one do you? Streamlabs has their own thing, correct? What is it called?
They do, but I use Stream Elements for mine, just because it's a little bit more streamlined, no pun intended. But it's you just click the button, it takes you straight to this like really nice looking, easy to navigate page. You just type in the amount, type in a little message, hit send, and then it just goes straight up into your notifications, pops up on the stream, all that good stuff.
That's great, yeah.
But yeah, the way the Twitch structures their payouts is pretty like far away from each other kind of thing. So it's like if you are streaming a lot in like December, right, as an affiliate, and you're getting tons of subscriptions and people are giving you tons of cheers and all that kind of stuff, you don't actually see any of that percentage that you make after Twitch gets their cut until I want to say like first month of March. I think it's like a 90-day or first week of March. So it's like 90 days after you start doing things. So it's like
it's like a quarterly payout type of thing.
Right. Well, no. So it's like it's basically, I want to say that it's like 90 days from when you make the money. So if you start streaming in December, right? Like you won't see your first deposit from Twitch until March. But if you're also streaming all of January, then you'll still see that deposit in April. So it's not like they're only paying you out on like 90-day brackets. It's just 90 days from when you're making the money. But if you're, trying to generate revenue in like a meaningful way, especially in today's climate, 90 days is a long time. So having that immediate donation button is really helpful for people who haven't even reached affiliate status yet. So it's super cool that you can just like log on, set everything up, and then just, start generating income.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to another point is kind of monetizing your brand and your band in general. And I was actually reading, Devin Townsend actually wrote this little book on creativity. And I was reading one. I'm actually going to read a quote from it because it kind of informed my opinion on this quite a bit. So here it is. A decision that I had to come to at one point when I realized that I was making a living from music and that I needed to sell it is that although I don't like selling things, I need to. It's a practical reality of being a human on this planet at this period in time. Therefore, I need to embrace this and then learn not to be either afraid or embarrassed of it. And I think I can personally speak to that as, having been an artist or whatever, that after you're done creating something, it kind of almost feels like sleazy and scummy when you have to like
absolutely
go into the marketing aspect of it and you're selling everything. And I was one of those people who's like embarrassed of that part. And I think that quote is perfect because we live on this planet, and to get by, we're going to have to sell things. And if you make art, you can't be embarrassed of selling your art. And that's something that I think a lot of artists need to get over. They kind of want to have this this mystique and this mysteriousness, like Trent Reznor or something, where everything's artsy and you're not out there like pushing your brand. And that's cool, but I think that we're moving into a place where if you're going to be a successful artist, you have to monetize everywhere possible and not necessarily be like a Kiss or something where you're selling like bobbleheads and shit, but like you have to not be embarrassed of selling your art. And Riley, Allegaeon has a Patreon, correct?
Right.
So maybe can you talk a little bit about that and about just monetization of your brand in general?
So absolutely. So I think that as a musician, I totally agree with pretty much everything that you were saying. The only thing about the metal community in particular, and it's changed a lot for the better, I think, since we launched our Patreon, for example. But when we launched our Patreon, we got tons of clapback from the metal community for launching a Patreon. Right. And Heavy Blog is Heavy actually wrote a really, really cool like 4-piece essay on suffering in metal and how it's like an inherent part of the culture. And like, if it's like, people freaked out because, and they like kind of didn't really know why. And, certain media outlets put like a clickbait kind of spin on it where it was like, oh, band threatens to break up if they don't get money. And it's like, come on, bro. Like, that's not what you said. What we're saying here. Like, we were just kind of putting it all on the table being like, look, if we don't start, generating income, then like we won't be able to do this much longer. And that turned into like band threatens to break up, holding fans hostage. But no, people still got kind of pissed off because they were just like, how dare they like ask for money for their hobby? Like how, just like work hard. Like if people don't like you, then you should just break up kind of thing. And it was just like, bro, that's not really how it works. And so, like I said, Heavy Blog wrote this really kind of cool thing about suffering in metal and how it's this like inherent expectation. And like a lot of fans, as soon as bands like crest this mountain where they're comfortable and they're no longer suffering, they're like, oh, they sold out. Like, oh, they don't have like metal cred anymore. And you get this like really elitist kind of pretentious attitude coming out. And so sometimes it's hard to like take that leap because metal has always been like a voice of rebellion, like very not mainstream kind of thing. So when you take advantage of mainstream tools, that you see like podcasts and more mainstream musicians and all that kind of stuff, when you take advantage of tools that you see people like that using, the metal community kind of automatically gets a bad taste in their mouth because they're just like, oh, these guys are selling out. Like I said, I think that's changed a lot over the past almost 4 years since we started our Patreon. And people are just kind of like coming around to it being a thing. But it's hard sometimes in metal to do, as Devin says. And like, even if you have that realization of, you can't be afraid to sell stuff and you can't be afraid to market your brand, sometimes it's like you have to navigate how to do that so that you're not, rubbing people who kind of already have a tendency to be a little bit more scrutinizing, the wrong way. Right. So, yeah, I think that, and that, also has a lot to do with, I think, why, so many bands up until this point have been hesitant to do things like Twitch streaming and, other stuff like that. Because the only people that you see, at least in metal that are Twitch streaming that are like wildly successful at it are like Matt and Herman from Trivium and Dragon Force. And so it's like, these guys in like more middle of the road bands or even like better, well-to-do bands, I think can sometimes kind of look at that and, like Vince said earlier, visualize all this negative clapback that they're going to get and just be like, I'll just not do that. I'll just wait. So,
yeah. And look, if it wasn't working and the experience was poor, I don't think people like Matt and Herman would continue to do it.
Yeah,
and
no way.
One of the responses I had to Allegaeon in the issues with Patreon when that launched was, if people like Dr. Disrespect and Ninja are worthy of support from fans, then why not one of your favorite metal bands? And ultimately, what I think Patreon and Twitch are an extension of, fan clubs. How long has Metallica had a fan club?
Yeah.
Metallica hasn't wanted for anything since the fucking Reagan administration. So it's extra money for them, but if people weren't getting something out of it, they wouldn't put money into it. And that's really, I think, the importance of something like a Patreon or a Twitch stream. People are going to support if they feel like they're receiving an equal value. Like a Patreon, if you're doing those tier subscriptions, what are you getting for that? As long as the artists and the creators are providing something of approximate value to the fans to make it worthwhile, I think it's a great experience. And a lot of the music business and where it's going is super serving super fans, whether that's really high-end vinyl and CD packaging, Blu-ray, which really doesn't sell at all anymore, but super fans might buy a live Blu-ray, and things like Patreon and Twitch. It's just extensions of that. And I think it would be a really sad world if fans didn't want to support musicians in that capacity, right? I mean, how crappy would that be?
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, if I could, whip up a time capsule and go back to 2016 when we were launching our Patreon, knowing what I know now, I think that that's how I would have chosen to market it. Navel of Iscaris was the only other band in the metal world that had done the whole Patreon thing, and they got a bunch of clapback when they launched theirs as well, but they kind of approached theirs from the same businessy, here's how the industry works, and here's kind of you remember when Protest the Hero made that video when they were crowdfunding that one record, and they gave the breakdown on how the back end split kind of goes. People latched onto that because it's information that the average consumer and average listener doesn't know or think about, and so people kind of latched onto that and were like, oh, I had no idea. Here, let me help you guys escape the evil clutches of the music industry, which is kind of silly, but we went from a less extreme version of that because they were trying to go fully independent. And what we were trying to do is just kind of be look, here's how it works. Here's our take home at the end of the day, at the end of a tour, and at this point in our career between tours, it's not really enough to keep us afloat. We also can't really get day jobs because we're also, at this weird midway point where it's we tour enough to not have normal home lives, but don't tour enough to, live off of that. So here's this, solution that we're trying to come up with. And like I said, in retrospect, I don't think that was the best way to go about it. I think that doing the whole hey, this is just a fan club. If you want to join our fan club, we're using this website. It kind of looks like Kickstarter, not really the same thing. It's got the tiers and all that stuff, but it's monthly. Here's what we're offering. If you want it, jump on board.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I've actually had one band specifically ask me, hey, we're looking at potentially creating our own app and delivering exclusive content through that app. And I said, yeah, that's Patreon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they said, well, we kind of want to make our own app. Great. Use Patreon. Why would we kind of, if you're someone big enough, I don't know, Toby Keith.
Yeah.
Maybe you can make your own app. But for everyone else that isn't at the peak where they command millions upon millions of listeners, everyone else essentially has to go where people are already going. It just doesn't make any sense to try to get people to go to a website they're not used to or download a new app because you're just not going to get enough people. And that's the other thing too, is I've seen a lot of people come up with all these wacky ideas. No, just Twitch and Patreon, use the platforms you already have rather than trying to bring people to something new. It's just, people are in their routines and they're not going to really probably try a new platform to spend $5 to buy a concert ticket to see a stream show. Why wouldn't you just put that on Twitch?
Yeah.
In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's like you said, I think that I think that what draws people to ideas like that is the idea of something new and something like fresh and something, branded to be, their particular.
Sure. Yeah.
That they can like push that marketing, being like, look at this new thing that we have, exclusivity and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's, chances are, I mean, and I, who knows, maybe they do, but chances are they have no experience running an app. And it's like, what's going to happen? Yeah. What's going to happen the first time that app crashes? Do you have like a tech dude on deck to be like, oh, hey, no, it's no problem, I'll fix this thing? Like, there's already very well-oiled platforms that deal with this kind of stuff en masse that are available. So why not
and it's gotta
use
be
those
easy.
tools?
Yeah, it's got to be easy for the band or the creator to use. It can't be something that's custom to where it's a hassle to push out updates, to create or something. And that's really why Patreon and Twitch, are so popular. They're relatively simple to use. And yeah, how many bands right now don't have a full-on website because it's difficult, or don't have a mailing list and things like that? I often find it's easier just to keep it simple, and sometimes people tend to overthink and try to get a little too elaborate or complicated. And, that's just not a good idea for most people, I think.
Yeah. 100%. Keep it simple. Keep it easy.
Man, this shit's heavy.
Yeah.
It's a crazy time.
It's heavy times, man. We definitely want our favorite artists to continue. And if we want that to happen, it's going to take us supporting. Continuing to help out when and how we can. Just,
Yeah, and that's the other thing. If you guys are sitting at home and you don't have a lot of spare money right now, you can stream stuff on Spotify basically for free, and it's a tiny amount, but it does help artists. So keep streaming, order mail order from your local shops. Order takeout. If you can afford it, we have to try to keep some
local restaurants for sure.
Yeah,
man.
keep some of this stuff going as much as we can.
Yeah, the focus on local economy. I feel like most of everyone is in like a guilty pleasure, like hometown group, you know what I mean, on Facebook. Like the one I'm in is called Escondido Friends, and it's just like a cesspool of like everybody who lives in my city. But it's been cool at least seeing different groups like that and people sharing different groups like that on social media, and how everybody's kind of rallying to support these local businesses that are city favorites and staples to the town that are struggling right now. Much more so than the corporate installments of the same thing.
Right.
So
yeah.
it's cool seeing people. I don't know, this whole thing. It's like I'm really trying to look at the silver lining with this.
Totally.
This whole giant shit show. Creative people coming up with creative solutions. People turning their eye back onto small businesses. It's almost like traveling back in time. Like it's kind of crazy. It's like I feel like I'm living in that like glamorized 80s dream world where everyone is like working together and super supportive and trying to better themselves for the sake of the world. And it's like, oh, this is kind of almost nice, minus the whole horrible disease part of it. So
yeah, I would prefer the apocalypse to be a little bit more cyberpunk and neon, Neo Tokyo looking.
I've got those like super cool light panels and light LED strings all over my house. I'm good to go. If I have to stay here.
So by the way, speaking of Roundabout, that song we've all learned now. I didn't really know until you brought it to my attention that it's highly memed, the original Yes version.
Highly memed.
It's used in the credits of a show called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Ryan, have you watched this?
No.
I finally started watching. Riley, you're gonna hate me because I'm not true, but I've been watching the dub version of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, not the sub.
It's okay. I forgive you this once.
One of the most unglued, insane pieces of anime I've ever seen in my life. It's amazing.
Where can I see it?
It's fantastic. Crunchyroll, Funimation, any one of those anime streaming sites. Okay. Where are you watching it, Vince?
It's on Hulu as well, but
Oh,
I do also still have a Crunchyroll subscription.
I think that Hulu and Netflix both have some of the episodes, but I think that Crunchyroll is the only one that's like
Everything.
up to date. Yeah,
Okay.
like does like simulcasts when new seasons drop and stuff like that.
It's definitely one of the most unique things I've ever seen.
It's so fantastic, especially
Yeah.
that first season when they're just like, first dropping all the like classic rock homages in the characters'
Right.
names. Like Jojo is the only one who's not named after
Yeah, Ryan.
a classic rock band. Like
the main enemy's name is Dio.
Okay.
The main friend of Jojo, his name is REO Speedwagon.
Yep. Robert E.O. Speedwagon.
Yeah,
His teacher is Zeppeli, right? Yeah.
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to type here. I have to look this up. I have to look up the voice actor. I knew that voice actor's name almost immediately, or not his name, but I knew that voice actor. Holy shit, I have to find this.
So wait,
See, I've never watched the
tie-in.
English one.
Explain the tie-in to Roundabout to me again.
Okay, so the credits, for the first season, basically it's like you'll hear the like intro, like the like kind of ring out as they're like still talking about stuff, and they're about to do like an action scene, and then basically it's like every episode almost kind of ends on like a cliffhanger or like a freeze frame.
Okay.
And basically when the freeze frame happens, this little arrow flies from the side of the screen and says to be continued. And then it's like as they freeze frame, the baseline for Roundabout drops in.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And so then they roll the end credits to the first like minute and a half of Roundabout.
Oh, nice.
So the thing is, though, is that like, because JoJo's isn't a new series by any means. And so a few years ago, people started using that freeze frame to be continued format as a meme. And so if you go to YouTube and you type in, to be continued compilation, you'll get 1.5 million videos of just people making these to be continued memes. And it is like, it's a meme format I wish never died. But hey, now that we have a version of Roundabout, hopefully it'll come back.
There you go.
So,
Nice.
yep.
So
Doing the meme world a service.
I found it. Robert E.O. Speedwagon is voiced by this guy, Keith Silverstein. He plays Ronan in Warcraft. Ryan, you probably don't remember Ronan, but you do remember Ronan. It was a character in Wrath of the Lich King. The guy in Dalaran that said, "Citizens of Dalaran, raise your eyes to the skies and observe." Like every hour in
Okay.
Dalaran.
Okay.
Right.
That guy. So his voice, I've heard him do that so many times playing Warcraft over the years that as soon as Speedwagon started talking, I had to look it up because I didn't know that guy's name. But yeah, just, one of those cool voice actor things you find.
That's great.
That is amazing. I should watch more English dubs because I would love to be in the voice acting world. I've tried to break into it a couple times, but it is like breaking into Fort Knox. Like it is very clicky and very, you got to know somebody kind of thing.
Yeah.
But even still, it's like, it's so much fun, and I'll do voiceover projects, just sign on to Buford Casting Club every once in a while and just like do a few lines for someone here and there just because it's like so fun. So I really should listen to more English dubs for animes, but I was born a subs man and I will die a subs man. But yeah, it's a fantastic show. It's really good. I highly recommend everyone watch it. The thing is though, is that so after the To Be Continued thing came out, obviously JoJo's had like really grown in popularity since then. And so another kind of like sub meme of that was the is this a JoJo's reference? And so you have like tag pages on Facebook being like, someone will post a meme and they'll be like, is this a JoJo's reference? And it's really used in reference to like anything anime related. And so my favorite part of seeing Roundabout drop has been just how littered every comment section on every outlet has been with, is this a JoJo's reference?
Nice.
It brings sunshine to my day. It's amazing.
Well, and that's the smart thing about that cover, right? Is not only did it get the attention of prog fans. It just got added to the prog metal playlist on Spotify yesterday, by the way. Or
Yep.
was it today? I can't remember.
I think
time,
it was
again.
a
Time
couple
has
days
no
ago.
meaning.
Yeah.
Time has no meaning. Here we are. What day or year is it? I have no idea.
Doesn't matter.
But just like subdivisions that you guys did before, it has a really positive response. So it's getting the attention of some prog fans, but also the entire fact that people do know the song from JoJo's. It's crossing like genre and format boundaries and getting people's attention.
Yeah.
That's, things like that are things bands need to do these days to get people's attention.
Yeah,
I don't know, just thinking out
especially in
loud
metal.
a bit there in that one. But yeah, I mean,
Hey, man.
doing something notable and memorable, it sounds obvious, but it's turned out to. I didn't really realize how recognizable that song was from JoJo's until really it came out and the comment section was flooded. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's easier said than done, and that I don't even think was like our intention going into it. That was just kind of something that like me as a huge, giant fucking weeb, was just like, oh, this is the JoJo song, ha ha ha. And then now looking at like every comment section, I'm just like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Yeah, and Greg originally wanted to cover that, right?
Greg wanted to do Machine Messiah from I can't remember what album, Drama, I think it's from, like their like early 90s album.
Wow.
And then I wanted to do Heart of the Sunrise or Close to the Edge. Heart of the Sunrise is also on Fragile, and Close to the Edge is kind of its own album. But Close to the Edge is like 18 minutes long.
Oh, jeez.
So that was a no-no. And and Heart of the Sunrise is only, only I should say, relatively compared to Roundabout, is only 10 minutes long versus the 8.5 that Roundabout is. But it's just like not as well known of a song, and that was kind of my deal with Machine Messiah. I think Machine Messiah would have been easier to turn into a metal song, but everybody knows Roundabout. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's one of those songs that even people who aren't Yes fans, like when Roundabout dropped, it was like hot on the radio for like 10 years almost. Even classic rock stations now still play it for people who still listen to the radio. But it was just such a hot song, and I've been seeing tons of comments as well from like the older crowd being like, oh my god, I loved this song when I was in my 20s and they did such a good job, and blah blah blah. It's pretty cool, breaking boundaries with Roundabout.
Yeah, and it's so easy for a metal band to make a song metal and make people hate it.
Yeah, that is for sure.
But that's
and there's a little bit of that too. You know what I mean? People being like, it gets too muddy. There's no dynamics, and I'm like, well. I have this really good philosophy that I adopted once I started getting a little bit more attention in music, and it's never take criticism from someone that you wouldn't take advice from.
We talked about that on the other episode, and I think that's a really good piece of advice.
Yeah,
no, totally.
100%.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, speaking of advice and talking to people that know what they're doing, should we send this to the Jarvis Leatherby interview?
Yeah.
We had a chance to join on Skype here with Jarvis Leatherby, or join digitally in however way we figure out best to do it. You know him as the bass player and vocalist of Night Demon, but he also manages a bunch of bands and is behind putting on the Frost and Fire Festival in Ventura, California.
He's an old school aficionado.
He's one of the guys, essentially, one of the main people responsible for the resurgence of underground traditional metal in the U.S.
Totally.
nice.
So yeah, let's see what he has to say about things.
We've got Jarvis Leatherby here joining us on the Metal Blade podcast. You know Jarvis from Night Demon, Cirith Ungol, and he manages a bunch of bands as well as part of his management company, Iron Grip Management. Jarvis, what's up, man?
What's up, Vince?
Did I get any of that wrong?
Yeah, no, that's all right, man.
Okay, perfect.
That's it. Yeah, that's not all, but that's the important stuff.
Right.
Yeah, totally, man.
So there's already been some tour cancellations, of course. This is a weird time, and we've been addressing things bands can do on this podcast to kind of stay busy during the downtime. What have you been doing so far?
Man, it's kind of a weird thing. I've been busier than ever. Like I'm too busy right now. I don't like it almost. It's kind of a weird thing. I mean, there's a lot of good things about that too. Obviously, when a lot of people aren't, like I've got friends where like their jobs, they've had jobs for like 15 years, and then their jobs tell them like, hey, yeah, don't come in for a month and we're going to like turn off your email. Like what? Like crazy stuff like that. So for me, I don't know. It's like we had a lot of stuff get canceled, obviously. I think Night Demon had almost 80 shows canceled.
Jeez.
We were going to be on tour basically right now for the next 2 months. And then Cirith Ungol's had a bunch of festivals canceled. And everybody has, obviously. But basically every band that I'm involved in or managed was affected by it as far as having something canceled. So, we just kind of roll on with that. I mean, there's nothing you could do about that. I mean, stuff that's just out of our control. I mean, that's most people's fears are things that are out of their control anyway, So, but for us, I mean, I don't know. Night Demon's putting out music. We just put out a single last Friday, so we already had that on the books. And obviously the Cirith Ungol release is, it's like all that stuff was done right before this. And, that's kind of a first in my career. I'm usually like, no matter how prepared I think I am, I'm always like the last minute, like, you're handing in a master last minute or artwork or whatever, and you just got to live with it, but this time around we've been fortunate in that fact, and it's weird. Like, I kind of feel guilty with like the sales have been really great, and I'm kind of like almost like, I hope people aren't wasting their money on, not that it's a waste to buy vinyl, you know what I'm saying? But so I'm sure some people don't even know if they're going to have a record player in a few months, but
yeah, that is a little bit of weirdness, right? Asking fans to support when they might not have a job themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, we put out this Night Demon 7-inch last week, and we didn't do any pre-order or an announcement. We just kind of thought, well, when this thing's ready, let's just do that. I just got tired of pre-orders for a minute, and at the same time, it's like now, like you kind of wonder about that business model. Like it's like, you don't want to pay for something like that's novel 3 months in advance when you don't know if, like you don't know what 3 months from now looks like, So I think like the instant gratification thing, at least on a business end, works for us in some weird way, on some unplanned way, and because we sold out like within 3 hours. So I thought I was going to have some of these for a year, yeah, after all this stuff broke out. So I guess, I mean, there's been some small victories, in my business world, and in the creative world, the band, at least Night Demon guys, we see each other every day, and we still, we're still making music and doing a lot of cool stuff, and doing a lot of video stuff. We already had a lot of this stuff planned for 2020. Getting into a lot more documentation, video wise of what the band is doing. And so I don't know, for us, it's kind of weird. It's like a perfect storm, because the other side of it was normally we'd be on tour right now, and there was a lot of things that I'm not going to say I wasn't ready to do, but I just wasn't as prepared as I wanted to be. So for me, it kind of gave me a little bit of a clean slate. It's like everything that I had on the books is just off the table. So it's like, okay, like a lot of stress was taken away when that had happened, because obviously it's happening to everybody, right? So it's kind of a level playing field for everybody. It kind of just evens everything out, which is kind of nice. Like, you can't, I don't know, like for the first time, it's like, on a Saturday, like this last weekend, I was like, I'm not going to answer my email today, I'm just not going to do it. And like, it didn't matter, nobody cared.
It does feel a little bit like a clean slate.
It is, so I think that this is a good time for people to like really, kind of look inward and reflect, especially if they're spending a lot of time on their own, I mean, some people, like I can imagine for some people that like live on their own. I mean, they're spending a lot more time by themselves right now that they probably normally used to, and like, now's not a time to freak out. Now is the time to be like, all right, look, the world is changing. It's out of my control. There's nothing I could do about it, but like, there's like a 99% chance I'm going to survive this thing, and so who am I going to be when when things do get back to normal, because a lot of industry is going to change too. A lot of people will not have a job, and a lot of, I'm sure a lot of businesses are probably like, when they weather the storm too, they're thinking like, well, I can't just hire everybody right back because, no matter how much the government says they're going to take care of you, this is not, you can never believe that, this is a time for humans to take care of humans and not rely on the government, because these fools do not know what time it is. They're not going to, no amount of money they're going to give you is going to change your life,
Well, Saint Vitus in Brooklyn just launched a Kickstarter.
What's that?
Saint Vitus in Brooklyn just launched a Kickstarter.
What are you talking about?
The venue, Saint Vitus.
Wait, it's gone?
No, they launched a Kickstarter. I'm typing this up right now. Yeah.
Oh, for what?
Saint Vitus Relief Fund.
So, like to save the club?
I guess so. Yeah, I didn't look at many of the details. Yeah, and that's what it is.
Hard thing right here. This is the thing. I've kind of taken the stance where it's like, all right, like who are you going to donate to? Everybody needs it, right?
Right.
So it's like, it's just not. I'm more about. I've taken the stance of, like, look, I'm still an artist, or I'm still, I still have a business and I still have a product from. That we can sell, like, basically, if I can provide a service, then that's worth the donation. You know what I'm saying? It's instead of just, because it's like who would feel right starting a GoFundMe right now? I definitely wouldn't. Like, it's hard. It's hard to do that when everybody is in the same situation. So I think right now is when you have to like dig deep and like, start going on street corners and tap dancing, or like,
right.
Open that guitar case up, like, it's like you have to trade goods for a service, right? Something that people want. And when you're in entertainment, if your fans want to be entertained, you've got to provide them with something good, and I think a lot of cool art is coming out of this period. I don't know how all of you guys are, but or where everybody lives too, because I'm in Ventura and it's like, it's been like a ghost town around here, and it's been really nice. Like, I still go out all the time. I don't hang out with people, but I go for like, I walk probably 6 to 10 miles a day, and like through the, on the beach and through the orchards and stuff like that, and through town, and like, I'm definitely social distancing myself, but I'm getting out there and it's like the air is clean. People seem to be like pretty respectful of each other and really nice. Like, it doesn't, it seems like crime has gone down, even though most people you see are like the undesirables, they're the ones that are out there, and then I kind of think to myself, like, well, if they're out here and I'm out here, then I must be like an undesirable as well. So.
Well, I don't blame you. Ventura rules. Every time I've gone out there, I thought, why don't I spend more time here?
Yeah, it's real nice, man. I mean, even right now, I got out of the office for a minute. I'm just like sitting in my car out in the fields here. It's just like pretty nice. Like, oh yeah, I think we might get a little bit of rain. I kind of feel like it's funny because our complex, we have like a warehouse and a studio that Cirith Ungol and Night Demon kind of like operate out of, and I have an office there. And it's like in the middle of these fields. So in like kind of an industrial area, but it's kind of weird lately. Kind of feels like we kind of like own this orchard, and like the road here is, we're kind of just let people pass through, like it's just really like, no, it's really desolate. It's a little creepy, but it's nice. It's kind of like a reset, but I mean, you guys are like, who lives in LA? Like, is there less smog or what?
Ryan and I don't live far apart from each other in the San Fernando Valley here. And Riley, you're down where? Oceanside or Escondido?
Escondido up in North County, San Diego. So it's
That's nice.
It's great. I love it. But same thing. It's like been total ghost town. Pretty much everywhere you go that's not like within half a mile of a grocery store is just like totally dead.
Yeah, and I don't know how you guys feel about that, but like, there's weird stuff. Like, I'm like the kid in the 80s horror movie right now, like these days, where like I'll go investigate stuff that I know I shouldn't,
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome.
like the other day we heard like sirens out here on this like farm road, like desolate road for hours. So I finally had to go, and there's like a cop car like driving back and forth for hours with a siren on and on the lights on, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, I mean, your conspiracy ears automatically go up, and you're like, okay, so basically they're trying to tell people that are inside by hearing that like, hey, don't come outside because there's bad stuff happening out here, But it's like, people aren't that stupid, right? I mean, I hope not.
Generally speaking.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I realize now, like, say in the past few weeks, I haven't left my house without my knife. I just kind of like just as a safety precaution, like, I mean, obviously a knife is not going to keep me from getting sick, but I go out a lot still. So I see a lot of the people that are out, and like, a lot of the people that are out, they're not like mentally sane, so
even the people who are, I've seen like tons of people just like driving, especially like absolute, like just total outlaws, like
panic.
Oh, dude, just people like blasting through red lights and going like 40 over the speed limit in like 35 zones and shit. Just like they're just taking advantage of like nobody being around and just being like, it's a free for all. Like,
I've seen a couple races, at stoplight, like total like Back to the Future 3 style,
Yeah.
and like there's it's definitely interesting. I thought I drive like a Scion, like one of those like box Scions, the XB, and I thought about like kind of like doomsdaying it out just a little bit, like like I wanted to get a grill on the front and maybe some like roof lights, but like something kind of like inconspicuous, and put like grills like around the lights and stuff like that,
Just put some bull horns up on top of it,
some kind of battering ram, but like a legal one, like just like total Zombieland style.
Yes.
I'm not opposed to that at all. My coworker Matt, his father has a collection of medieval armor, and apparently he has too much of it. So I'm going to come upon at least one medieval helmet soon. And I just have this thought and vision in my mind of rollerblading around the San Fernando Valley wearing a medieval helmet. I can't wait. Now seems the best time to do something like that.
I feel like you need to also do it shirtless with one of those like X-shaped leather harnesses that just like has the big O-ring in the middle of it. Just go full Master Blaster.
Full Manowar. Yeah, full Conan. That's just crazy. I mean, I'm still stuck on the fact that you have a friend that just has like, look, man, I have too much medieval armor. It's just like it's overtaken my house. Like now that I can't leave my house, like, I got dead cats like a hoarder just under medieval armor. Like,
well,
it's crazy. I'm sure you can talk to some bands that would love some stuff like that to use for a video or whatever,
Well, that's part of it too, is I want to have it on hand for video ideas. But yeah, well, it's his dad and he's retirement age. And doesn't that seem like a Midwest dad thing to do, is start collecting armor?
Yeah, totally.
I'm not opposed to that at all.
Yeah. The thing about collections, though, it's like you need a true collector needs all of them,
Right.
So, but that's another rabbit hole. I got out of the collector world like when I started kind of releasing my own stuff, and I collect one of each of the things that I've done. It's kind of been like that's I limit it to that now.
Yeah, I mean, who's got the space?
Yeah, well, it's crazy, dude. Especially now, but do you know, is there like still a metal blade warehouse of like stock or old stock or B stock or like expired license stuff, or like is everything just gone, or is everything at indie merch, or do you guys ever have, does Metal Blade ever have stuff that like later on could possibly like be unearthed, like new old stock?
Well, that's part of the reason that Brian started that store out in Vegas, because he did have so much old stuff.
Right.
There's still quite a bit of really old, random, catalog, and I think a decent chunk of things were destroyed in the quake in the early 90s. But I don't.
The
was
Northridge
destroyed.
quake?
Yeah, I think there was
Really?
I think some Metal Blade stuff was lost in that. I'd have to double check, but that's something I remember hearing about is some things, but there's still quite a lot.
Like, imagine this: there's an earthquake, and like some concrete fell on a bunch of boxes of LPs, and they were all crushed. It's like,
Yeah,
how does that get damaged in an earthquake? I could
Yeah, I don't
understand
know.
like a
Well,
fire.
Yeah, Metal Blade was at the time not far from the Northridge epicenter. So I don't know, but I remember hearing something about that, but I'd have to look into that just to double check. But there's still a lot of shit, and some of it's in that store in Vegas, and some of it's still kind of stored away with kind of Slagle's old collection of stuff.
Right. Do you think? Because I know that they like when Warner was involved with the label, I know that they like Warner Brothers had a big fire, on their property, I think, and that a lot of masters were lost, and like a lot of stuff was lost, movie backlots, and all that stuff. But yeah, who knows? I just always like, it's always so cool to find stuff like that. And so I've seen Brian posting some things, and there is some vinyl like at that the swap meet store or whatever he's in, like the antique mall or whatever, that like sometimes I see, I'm like, oh man, I want to grab that, but I'm gonna email Brian and go, hey dude, can you hey, you want to mail that out to me? Yeah. Hey Brian, what's your PayPal? Like, yeah, here's my address.
Hey, well, if you ever see anything, let us know, and we can have someone in Vegas go out there and swoop it up. But
oh, dude, I'd love that. Let me call my Vegas guy. Hey, yeah.
It's not as shady as that sounds.
yeah.
But Metal Blade does have a climate-controlled master vault in Hollywood, and it looks like something. It's one of those vaults that companies just rent space in. It looks like
Hollywood?
something. Yeah, it's one of those things. You remember when they got into the underground bunker in Independence Day? It's
the movie, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like that a little bit. It's really cool. It's super cold in there. You have to wear a hoodie and gloves almost no matter what.
Dude,
but
that is so freaking cool.
Yeah, Heather and I had to go back in there months back to find an old cattle master that Travis from Cattle swore existed, and we finally found it. It took some doing, but Heather dug around and found it. But we took some pictures of some of these spines of the old reel-to-reel masters in there. It was pretty cool.
Oh, really?
Yep. Old Slayer masters and shit. It's cool.
That's cool, dude. That's so awesome, man. Is it like cryogenic? Is it like
I don't know how it's controlled, but yeah, you enter from an underground parking garage, and it's all passcode protected with one of those swipe card key things. And there's always there's a security guard with cameras running cameras on the parking lot, cameras on the entrance. It's pretty cool.
It's crazy. You need gloves and a hoodie to go inside.
Yeah.
One day there's going to be like Bill Matoyer's body's going to be frozen in there, like in a cryogenic chamber, and he's waiting for the reanimation, to happen,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we have something like that for Night Demon and Cirith Ungol similar. I have it's basically, we call it the vault, or they call it, actually, the guys in the band call it the Jarchives, but it's basically a huge room that's locked and, somewhat temperature controlled. I don't have humidifiers in there or anything, but we've got like the entire history of the bands, like all the archives are in there, master tapes too from like the 70s and stuff. So it's pretty cool. So I'm always like way into stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean it's good to do it the right way, and that's something I wrestle with my own digital master files for videos and photos, like how best to store these. And it's you got to do it right, otherwise it becomes too big of a mess down the road.
Obviously, digitizing stuff is like the best way to archive something for longevity. But man, that feeling when you lose a hard drive, or like you just, all this stuff is gone that was never really here. It's the strangest feeling, and it's like, okay, like it's not like it's like losing your house in a fire, but like you don't remember ever living there. I don't know. I'm just trying to use some weird analogy about like losing all this digital information.
Yeah, that's, I've been moving things over to Google Drive because you're right, hard drives aren't a permanent storage
So
solution.
you're into the cloud thing.
Well, you kind of have to be. For a long time, we've been juggling hard drives of video masters, and I kind of came to the realization that, especially once you have so many, it's just too cumbersome.
What about for like personal stuff? Like are you, because you're pretty techie, what's your stance? Give me the full like conspiracy theory on phones and cloud services. Like, because I'm having major digital storage problems all the time where it's like slowing me down extremely, and so like I want to join a cloud service, but like how open or closed are those networks?
I mean, I've been pretty happy with Google Drive so far personally, but there are a bunch of different cloud services out there that probably have different levels of security. And I guess your Google Drive would be as secure as your Google account. And ultimately, that should be one of the most secure accounts you do have, right? I mean, if your Google account's compromised, everything else could get compromised because you probably use that for a lot of other things. So I'm happy with that. I don't know, Ryan, do you use any, because Ryan, you still write and record, and Riley, you do too. Do you guys cloud store anything?
I Google Drive like almost everything. But I have like a couple 4 terabyte Western Digital.
Yeah,
guys
dude, that
I just
company though, man.
Oh, dude, they're so rough.
Dude, they just stop working,
Yeah, they're pretty rough, but I only use them for usually what I do is I record onto like a solid state external, and then I have it on there, and then I'll back it up to like a Western Digital that like never gets plugged in outside of when I'm backing stuff up, and then I'll back those up to the cloud so that it's like it's always
the hard
somewhere.
drive like back in its original box, and you're like,
Yeah.
put it in the closet very carefully in the
Put a little sticky note on the side that has the project file name on it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then you take it out. You need it 2 years later, and the damn thing doesn't work. Like it lights up. You can hear something spinning inside, but it's out of date. It's like that. That's the kind of the frustrating thing about some of that stuff, But it's, I mean, well, I don't even know why I'm talking about security. Like, who the hell cares? Like, who wants anything from any of us? Like,
Right.
like, dude, I gotta hack this dude's email because I need the original layout files of this so I can bootleg LP. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, you'd be surprised. We just had some emails come in over the last week or so from someone that said they spent $95 on Bandcamp for a song. Riley, this just happened with Allegaeon, and I forwarded it to Matt, seeing if he knew anything about it. And the email said, I accidentally spent $95 on a song. I meant to spend $950. Can you refund this email address on PayPal? And it was different than the email address it was coming from. And I thought it was a little weird, so I asked Matt, like, hey, what's the issue with this? $95 is pretty steep for one song. And he had just dealt with an email thread a week or so before with the same thing, with almost the exact same text with the same dollar amounts from a different email address, but saying to refund that same Gmail PayPal account. So that's an example of potentially, my guess is that Gmail account or that Bandcamp account got compromised.
That's the new scam, right?
Right.
Like the new I live in Africa, send me a check.
Yep.
Yeah. So you just don't know what kind of scammers might come up with. So you got to be careful. Even if you have nothing to hide, you're attached to so many billing things online. You need to be careful.
Can you imagine how many applications are going to be scams right now? Like digital hackers are going to be like, hey, free money from the government, or COVID-19 relief. Like all you need to do is create some little generic logo and then go, give me all of your info here and apply. I want your social security number. I want your mother's maiden name. I want you to create passwords. I want you to just give like all that data, So I'm sure there's going to be, hey, whatever. That's the way the world is. That's the way the world is, Yeah,
it's crazy.
I'm sure Allegaeon has a song about how screwed up everything is.
Oh, so many.
Well, man, Night Demon actually working on us. We're doing a song right now about like this whole thing that's going on. We started writing it before things got really crazy too. So we're like, okay, we got to stick with it now. I'm sure many people will be touching on this as things are progressing. I'm sure it's happening right now. There's probably books and movies being written and tons of songs, and like, I mean, that's got to be happening, right?
I'm personally working on because I'm doing lots of like session work and lots of studio jobs from home right now, and I am personally working on 3 songs from different bands around the world that are like, so we're doing like a COVID-19 song. It's all about like the apocalypse and shit. And I'm like, all right, word. I'll I'll whip up some lyrics and try to make them different from the other 2 songs that I'm writing about this.
So they're all your projects?
No, so I usually like will write lyrics though for studio things, because it's kind of like people want like my vocal style, but they also want like my writing style.
Really?
Yeah.
You pen lyrics for other artists?
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, just for my parts, you know what I mean? But if they're like, oh, we want you on a whole song, then all of a sudden I'm writing lyrics and doing vocals for a whole song as like a guest feature kind of thing.
See, that's cool, man. That's lucrative in times like these,
Yeah, absolutely. It's been saving my ass for sure.
Yeah, like it's crazy. Like I've been able to hire probably 7 or 8 people that like I've always tried to work with, but we're always so busy, whether I'm talking about like producers, artists, publicists, like live or video guys, so it's like all these guys that now are like not doing anything, looking for something to do. And especially if you can, a lot of that, if you could do remotely is great. If you're editing videos or mixing audio or, stuff like that. I mean, it's definitely something that can be done, or you're an artist and you're painting or you're drawing or whatever, but yeah, so that's been really gratifying for us to be able to be like, hey, look, we're able to give people some work, and we're able to work with the people that we want to work with. So it's been really cool for the creative process, especially not like kind of like, I don't know if you've had any tours or festivals rescheduled. We've had some rescheduled, but
yeah, we have one thing in August that's still on the books that hasn't been postponed or anything, and I'm like skeptical. I'm skeptical that that's gonna stay a thing, but we'll see. Yeah,
like for Midnight, we announced a tour yesterday, like the European tour that we already had booked and routed for October and November. I've been working on that since last year. So, but I was like, yeah, you know what? We had it scheduled to announce this time. Let's just do it, because the worst is like, it's like when you get like, if you have one big festival cancel in August, then everybody else in the world's pretty much like, all right, August is done. If these guys aren't doing it, then nobody's going to do anything,
Yeah.
So you need to have people start announcing things for later on and going like, hey, plan for this, because this is going to happen and we're going to get through this thing by then, So, I don't know. I'm trying to be optimistic and not paranoid about it. I don't really know how you guys feel about it, but like,
it's a light at the end of the tunnel tour. That's what that is.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. That's pretty good. I mean, I don't know.
I
like that
are you
guys scared?
I like that you're coming at it from trying to look at the bright side. I mean, I think that's really important. I think a lot of people are like, doom and gloom right now, and the world is over.
Yeah.
But
Well, let me give you this. Let me give you this stat. Okay. This is not like actually, it's not a real stat, but like I don't have actual numbers, but like during the Great Depression, like the big crash of 29, that was like the time that there were more millionaires made in America, like per capita, like than any other time in history. Like there was a lot of, like, we hear about a lot of these big downturns and like these big catastrophic events that happen. But if you look at history, they happen over and over again. Like it's just history repeating itself, like the saying goes,
mm-hmm.
And like there's always a better way to look at things, and like you just got to look deeper in and really tap into that and find that. And everybody's going to find something different, which is unique to them, which is really cool, but it's like having the scarcity mindset. You don't think that there's enough. Everybody, when you have the scarcity mindset, it's kind of like everything in the world, like there's not enough to go around right now, and like I'm at the bottom of the food chain, so I'm not going to be successful, or I don't have anything, or, there's no opportunity for me, basically, but that's totally not true. Cause like these days you have 8-year-olds on YouTube making like $24 million a year, like showing their toys, so like there's tons of opportunity out there. You just kind of gotta you gotta look inside, you gotta search deep within yourself to find that. And now the world's making you do it. The world has made everybody take vacation, and isolate themselves and chill out by themselves. So like what better time, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Totally.
Yeah, and that's, one of the things I've always found fascinating about you specifically, Jarvis, is you've really made this cottage industry with traditional metal happen in the US. Cirith Ungol's releasing the first new record, Forever Black, in April this month. It's their first new record in how many years?
29.
Yeah, and did you're the young guy, a guy that's not even that young, but compared to the rest of the band, did they think it was possible for them to even come back and do a record? Did they even think anybody cared? Originally?
It's weird. Like, I think initially before the band reunited, I think that they did not care. But it's funny because as things started to progress and the band had like all the success right off the bat, and like a whole new, like 85% of the current fans are like a whole generation younger or two, and like, like young hot chicks are like way into the band, and these dudes are like in their 60s, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here, and like it's just like this little, like, I don't want this to come across as creep, these dudes is like creepy grandpa, like,
right.
At that point it was like they wanted to make a record really bad, and I was actually the one to put it off. I put it off for a couple years, because I mean, we all know what happens when old guys get back together after 25, 30 years and try and make new music. That never goes well,
It's hard.
It's usually they want to be, hip and current and like modern and be able to like stand up like to today's standards, but like, and relate to their younger audience. But what a lot of bands don't realize is like their audience wants them for them, they want them to be in their 60s and they want them to do their thing. They want them to be themselves. They don't need them to have like current fashion or or like write modern type music, but a lot of people don't understand that. So, thankfully for me as the manager, like I'm kind of the last stop. So nothing's going to get done by this band. They're not going to play publicly or release anything publicly unless it's good, because the band doesn't need to do anything at this point, So my job is basically to protect the legacy of the band. That's kind of how I look at it.
That's smart.
So yeah, the songs actually came out pretty good. But again, it's like I'd be on tour with Night Demon for like, 6 months or something. And like they would be here at home writing the music and then send me demos and stuff. And I would come home and I have 2 subs. Like I have a bass player that normally subs for me so the guys can rehearse a few times a week. And I have a backup for him if he can't make it. So the bases are covered there, But, I think those guys would get frustrated because I would come home and they'd be working hard on something for months and I would chop it up and be like, yeah, that sounds like corn right there or something. That is not happening, And they'd be like, what? Like, no, sorry, Yeah. So it's like it was a good like tug of war, process through the whole thing. But it ended up being really good. And us having access to our own studio and like the Armand from Night Demon producing the record and engineering it just made it really relaxed. We were very comfortable, and it was good because that's the band never ever had that in their career. They were always rushed for time and out of money, and that's why those records sound like crap. So it was a good thing, and the songs did turn out well in the end, and it's definitely a worthy Ungol record. So I'm happy about that. It's a good comeback for them, and it's just not something I ever counted on, like it's not something I ever wanted to push them to do because, as I mentioned earlier, we all know that, that's the 90% of the time, that's what you get when you have guys that come back after so long. I mean, these guys, they didn't even play in other bands, like when they broke up, they spent 25 years like not playing at all, like not owning an instrument, so that was like a part of their past that they were like put away in a box, so anyway, I digress. Somebody else talk.
That's all super fascinating because we put out to fans these bios that I think are usually really cool, and there's always so much more info to uncover, especially with a band like Cirith Ungol that does have such a long history, and that is crazy to just put away and not think about playing an instrument after having been in a band that was active for at least an amount of time. I don't even think I really realized that they didn't play at all.
No, not at all. Like it was totally like even Rob Garvin, he sold his drum set in like 92 and he swore that he would never touch a pair of drumsticks again.
Wow.
And like 11 years after that, his wife got him a pair of drumsticks like as a stocking stuffer.
That's funny.
He refused to touch them even then, and he made her like he wouldn't touch them. And so she put them away up in the closet. And when I convinced him to try and play drums again, it was in 2015. He grabbed those sticks.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
it was
amazing.
like I always wanted like it's the ship has sailed on making a movie about this band because I think the time to film that would have been as these guys were learning how to play again and getting reintroduced to each other after decades of bad blood and not talking to each other, But because like Night Demon's pretty tight with the guys in Anvil. Like we've done a lot of shows with those guys, and so we've seen their dynamic firsthand. And obviously, we all know about their movie.
Sure.
Cirith Ungol has a crazier story, and even like there's a lot of tragedy behind it too. There's deaths and all kinds of stuff. Like I'm kind of living that movie, but I always thought it would be interesting for people to see, because there's these guys in the band, they're just such characters, and they're so, the music is just so weird itself, so, but that's why I like podcasts and I like things like this, because like you said, Vince, like when, you get the bios, it's like, we've got super long bios, but nobody wants that. Nobody has the patience anymore to read a long bio. They're used to scrolling through social media feeds at lightning speed.
Sure.
But that's why I like that podcasts like as a medium have taken off because it's not a new form of media, but it's definitely had its years of like it was a slow build. I think it's good now because I think it especially when they're archived. I think it kind of like supplies the future. I think podcasts are like the future bibliography, I guess I would say, for writers or for people trying to compile information and put a story together, or write books, because it's so hard to, like, you used to have to go to the library and like look at those like slides and look through newspapers and hope to find something somewhere, Then you had Google, but like, a lot of this stuff is like reading through interviews online or just finding them or tracking down magazines, But now I think on podcasts, like they have more freedom and more time to express themselves like authentically, that you get a lot more information. I don't know if you guys would agree with any of that.
No, totally. And I've definitely turned on podcasts a lot more in the last couple of years. And, one of the things we've been discussing at length on this podcast on a couple of the episodes, I at least want to bring up a little bit. And you touched on it earlier with just musicians having to go out there and grab that. And I've been banging the drum for things like Twitch and Patreon for a long time. Allegaeon has a Patreon. And as you said, as long as musicians are providing something for fans.
Yeah, you have to give a service.
Yeah, what do you recommend specifically, like creators and bands should do that you're doing that you're finding really works?
Come up with your own ideas and don't take mine. That's I think about it all the damn time, and I got a list, and it's a running list. And when I try something and it doesn't work, I just go to that next thing. No, but in all seriousness, I hate to be like a crystal Twinkie. I like to be the evil metal guy. But honestly, it's not a bad idea to just, when you have this time in seclusion, to just sit there and just, close your eyes and think about things, or just start writing things down. Just ask yourself some questions, That's the best thing to do in a band too. Whenever I have meetings with the band, I'm always like have a list of questions. Let's ask ourselves some honest questions here. Let's assess ourselves, like as if we're looking in on what we're doing, like what would a fan want from us?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the best thing to do, because the cool thing about metal is that it's all fan driven. There's nothing commercial about it that ever transfers over to us monetarily, to the bands or the labels. It's always, anytime money is made these days, it's all fan driven. We have to thank the fans for that. There's not a bunch of big sponsorships anymore, or like just major label dough just to try things out, So I think that the cool thing about metal is there's so many subgenres, and there's subgenres of subgenres. There's just things that, like, everything has its own audience, and it's just crazy to see how there's a style of metal that you don't even know about that has a huge audience, And I think that you just have to serve your audience first. And once you can do that, then your story organically grows and you can potentially gain some new fans, But I don't think the motivation should be the money. I think the thing is, you have to look at it and go, look, hey, we have a unique opportunity right now to do something unique and with the current cards that we've been dealt. What's something that's cool that our fans will dig? And if you put enough work behind it and you have enough quality behind it, then you could probably charge some money for it. And people would have no problem spending the money to support you if you're giving them something, If, then there's the flip side of it, where it's like a lot of other people are just kind of doing it for free, where it's like, but that band may be just going like, hey, we're going on Facebook Live from our practice space on my iPhone, and the speakers all blown out and shit. And like, there's just a certain level. If it's kind of like whatever level of quality you're going to give out is what you can charge for it. This is, in this day and age and the way that the world is changing, people are going to be paid what they're worth. That's just how it's going to be, And if you want to make more money with this society that's coming, then you just got to do higher quality stuff,
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up about fan service, because a lot of the meetings at Metal Blade, and you've been in meetings at Metal Blade before, Jarvis, when we're talking about a new product or a new pre-order item, the first part of the conversation is really, is it cool, and do we think fans would like it? And then we figure out financially if it makes sense. That's really where it all starts, because it has to.
It does, and I've recently been through that with our last campaign, where we just dropped that Night Demon single out of the sky. But in an instant grat society, and where future is unknown, and fearful, like it actually benefited us to have done it that way, So I'm all about the experimentation,
Right now is a good time to be flexible, and. Sorry to cut you off, Jarvis. I just wanted to ask Riley. So Riley, you guys just dropped Roundabout, cover, kind of out of nowhere as a sort of surprise. Some people knew, Patreon followers of Allegaeon knew.
Yeah.
But what have you found the response to be so far?
The response has been mostly positive, but it's like Jarvis was saying, like, you have to put in that work. Like, we have to, we're trying to do as many follow-up things that we can so that it doesn't just like die on the vine. You know what I mean? Like, the whole point of releasing something like this is to build momentum. And, originally it was planned to be like a pre-tour momentum builder, because tours, are obviously the best way to build that, get that speed going up. But now we're in a position where it's like, we have to really think about ways to, break out of the box and continue to build momentum around this track that will ultimately help the band. And that's been the biggest challenge of it, because the music we feel stands on its own. Like it's already a good song, you know what I mean? It's already a cover that people are very familiar with. And then we're confident that our fan base and even people outside of our fan base that are into similar things are going to hear what we do and be into it, or not into it, because it's music, and all that shit's subjective. But we're pretty confident that the music will stand on its own in that element of things. But the follow-up has been the hardest part, and we've done like a live stream event that I just did on like Facebook Live, like answering Q&A kind of stuff, and trying to organize some kind of like live streaming event. But also, as Jarvis said, it's tough because that's what everyone is doing right now. So thinking outside the box of people who are thinking outside the box right now is like the biggest challenge of this whole thing.
It can be done, and it will be done. And are you going to be the guy to do it? I mean, that's the thing, and that's the way I think. Is like it will be done. Somebody's going to do something, and I want to be that guy. And you've really got to focus on it. And I'm telling you, the positivity angle helps a lot. You just got to have faith, and you got to know that if you're willing to put the work in, that something's gonna come out of it. Most of it's just showing up. Sometimes people plan so much and they never really show up.
That's one of the problems I've found. Is I've had artists reach out to me with streaming ideas that were just far too elaborate, and I say, look, you got to learn to crawl before you sprint here if you're going to dive into the streaming realms. There's some learning curves there for making a quality stream. Sometimes I think people come up with complicated ideas so they never have to follow through. That's just my negative side.
Yeah.
The creativity flows. You know how it is. When the creativity flows and then you start getting ideas, then you start talking to other people, then stuff really sprouts and develops into something. Sometimes it's like, sometimes you have to just get it. You have to do the basics and get it out there and be consistent about it, versus, if you're a total perfectionist, which I've been before, like it never gets done, and it never gets done like to your liking. If you have the habit of just producing content and getting it out regularly, like, okay, so you said you have a Patreon, right? So you can't just do like one badass thing once every 6 months on that, right? I mean, it's a subscription, right?
Right.
So explain, if you can, like how you guys use it and how it works with your band.
So it has honestly like really slowed down over the past 6 months to a year or so.
Okay, so you've had it for a while then.
Yeah, we've had it since 2016. And when we were right out the gate with it, we got like tons of shit that we spoke about earlier in this podcast, but tons of shit from the metal industry before this kind of thing was like normalized.
Like giving you a hard time about it.
Oh yeah, dude, being like, oh, this band is just asking for handouts and they should
like
work if they want to
get.
Yeah, basically. Which is again something we talked about earlier in this podcast about how it's very fan club driven, but when we first started out, that's basically how we treated it. Was it's like, here's all this, here's all this viral content. Here's exclusive music videos. Here's some playthroughs. We had some grand ideas about like exclusive streams and like video lessons and stuff that never really came to fruition. But like the ideas were there. You know what I mean?
It's a lot of work, how.
Yeah, it really is. And
for $3 a month.
Yeah, and being as far apart as my band is, two of us living on opposite sides of California, two of us live in Colorado, and then one of us lives in Illinois. So it's like really difficult. It's like herding cats, being like, hey, here's the content schedule. Like, this is what you need to generate so that like we can keep these people that are subscribed to this thing happy. Yeah, it's tough. So like I said, it's slowed down a lot over the past like 6 months to a year or so, just because we've had to focus on touring and album releases and all this kind of stuff. But
like, so you generated less content and you saw fans drop off from it, basically.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's just kind of the name of the game.
Do you feel like those fans are gone, or do you feel like those fans?
Oh no, Not at all. I think that no one ever really feels like jilted by the whole like, well, I signed up for this Patreon thing and it didn't give me what I was expecting. I mean, that will happen eventually just because that's how some people's personalities are. But I think most people
See, I think that's what makes me nervous to do it. It's like I never want to take that step back where it's like this guy's such a loyal fan for years, like seen us 15 times, like come to our first tour, comes to see us every time, owns all the shirts, owns all the records, and then like one day you just like I can't give you my $3 a month anymore.
see. But I feel like those guys who are like super dedicated and super been there since the beginning kind of people, oftentimes they'll just let their subscription run just because they want to like support the band. Like they don't really care if they get anything in return. And that's obviously not to say like you shouldn't be giving them something in return. But
again, I think that's got to be the main focus. Like you got to have, as a band, I think you got to have that integrity a little bit intact, where it's like, look, like we're willing to weather the storm here, but it's kind of like, again, like we live in a society now where it's completely about survival and what people actually need,
Oh yeah.
So, my job with what I'm performing and with what, the other bands that I'm, involved with their career, is just kind of be like, we have to make it that good, that somebody would like, would have this over going out to dinner tomorrow night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, or that's kind of like it's the reality that we're living in and that we're facing, because things have not hit quite yet. Like things are definitely going to change, and I'm wondering if there's even going to be more manufacturing like in America. I'm kind of hoping that it goes that way, because I mean, there's the other side of it too, where a lot of factory workers are probably going to like lose their jobs, or who knows, like warehouse people. You just don't know. Everything's moving into automation and all this kind of crazy stuff, and I'm sure there'll be people working in warehouses, but eventually they're going to be like really highly paid people that know what they're doing, and there'll be less of them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, the future, I think, especially if you're going to be an independent creator in any capacity, whether it's music, because look, ultimately, us and a lot of our peers are independent creators that do music as an expensive hobby, break even, or make a little bit of money, are most of us. We're the lucky ones that get to work at a label and get a regular paycheck, but we realize we're in a better position than most, and that's really kind of a crazy privileged position. But for entertainment as a whole, it's really going to be a function of those who will and those who won't. It's not a function of can'ts, it's will or won't.
I think so too. But also from a business standpoint, I mean, I think you still have to look at financially, like, hey, what's going to move the needle here and what's going to rock the boat? Like, what makes what we do essential to people's lives? Are we providing them with a service that's changing their lives? And with the label, it's kind of tricky, because it's like, I would think right now, like, I would probably not put my focus in manufacturing like reissue picture disc or box set or whatever, you know what I'm saying, versus generating some new content that's relative to what's happening now and what people need now, that's exciting, that people are going to want to buy, because it's kind of the thing. It's like you want to own all these, people out there, like especially metalheads, they love their collections and they're meticulous about them, and some people are materialistic about them, but it's like you're not going to buy you're not going to buy the entire Iron Maiden discography at once on reissue picture disc vinyl, like right now, like you're just going to listen to it on Spotify and right?
Yeah, no one's really sure what's going to happen yet. And a lot of the things I think that are still coming out right now from labels are, like you said before, things that were done just in time before this all happened. So things are still coming out, but it's because they were already done. And beyond that, there's a hell of a lot of uncertainty still there.
Yeah.
We just don't know yet, and we'll see in 3 months.
I honestly think that, like, see, honestly, okay, so I don't know. I don't watch the news or anything because it's too negative for me, you know? So I don't know how real this thing is or not. Like, me living my life, like, I'm not affected by it quite yet, like in a negative way. You know, I've mentioned all the positive things that have happened. But you know, I still think that even if this thing is like a really big deal and a really big problem and a potential huge threat, I still seem to think that a lot of Americans are still just going to waste their money on crap after this. You know, I really do, you know, but there's nothing like the fan to band connection. When you have that, you're always going to be okay. Like, your fans will always take care of you if you need them, and you can provide them with something that's really awesome, you know? So that's always a really good thing to have that connection. You know, if you had to rely, if it was like the old days where you just had to, where like a label just had physical distributors and that was it. And then if we were going through this, a band would have to rely purely on album sales because they can't tour, but the record stores are closed, then everybody would be screwed, you know? So that's one, I guess, positive thing of, you know, the modern age, right? We have the ability to do things like that. So.
Yeah. And look, we just plowed through just about an hour in conversation.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I was mostly just rambling.
And this is great. It's why podcasts are fantastic, and why we can dive deep into these things. We don't have to worry about time limits or any of that. But no, what you said is exactly right. And that's why I bang on the drum so hard for artists to explore outlets and platforms like Patreon, like Twitch, not only because it's a potential source of revenue for the artist, but ultimately because it's a cool fan experience. And fans want to talk to their favorite artists, no matter how big they might be in the scope of whatever subgenre they're in. Fans just like that experience, and every band right now should be trying to experiment with ways that they can do that on their terms.
I've seen a lot of people sign up for that video thing. What's that one? Like celebrities, like
Cameo,
yeah, where it's like you go on there and you're like, hey, I want you know, Urkel, and they're like, okay, well, Urkel's like $400 like per video, and it's 20 seconds or whatever. You can write the script, you know, and then, but like everybody has their own price. Like some people are pretty damn expensive, you know?
Yeah.
So I could only afford the Urkel one, but
right.
You know, hard times, dude, you know, but I still bet, you know, people are going to spend their money on stuff like that. So
yeah. Well, yeah, this was fantastic, and you know, you're a busy guy, and so really, thank you for taking the time. And yeah, Ryan, Riley, you have any last minute tidbits to throw out there for Jarvis before we wrap this up?
No, that was great. Just thanks for your perspective and your time.
That was awesome, man. Lots of good perspectives that I hadn't necessarily thought of came from this conversation. So thank you for that.
That's good to hear. That's what I always want. You know, I mean, that's we can like have an open dialogue and take something from it. You know, I mean, I think that's super important.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to become a better listener these days, even though I talk so much, but you know, like that, I think that's always good. You know, I used to be a guy who, when I had an agenda, if I'm having a conversation with somebody, I'm already thinking about what the next thing I'm going to say when they're
right.
And everything they're saying to me is like just white noise, you know. Kind of gotten better at that through the years, and definitely like spending some time alone talking to yourself. Yeah, you get better at that.
that is absolutely a learned skill, and I think everybody needs to practice at that a little bit, and I would include myself in that group. But before we wrap you up here, where should people look to find you and your bands online? What's the easiest thing to do?
So I don't have a website. I kind of like, I guess I would say I have a boutique company, you know. I'm not
sure.
I'm never looking for clients. Oddly enough, I would say the best place to go is Kings Road is the merchandise site. And where you'll find Night Demon, Cirith Ungol, Visigoth, Satan, and Midnight. All of the stuff is there, and actually, when we started doing business with the company, I actually convinced them to update their platform a little bit, and I added tour dates and an Instagram feed onto those merch pages. So like that's kind of the official site for some of the bands. So you got all the information that you need there. You know, you have the news feed that's updated daily on social media, and like the Bands in Town app is right there, so you can see where the bands are playing. But there's nothing scheduled, so you don't need to go there to that section. But you can go and check out the merch and all that stuff. So
yeah, ultimately, what else does a band need in a website outside of an Instagram feed, tour dates, and merchandise? So check out King's Road for all the bands that Jarvis manages.
There you go.
Midnight, Visigoth, Cirith Ungol, Satan, and Night Demon. Pretty gnarly gang. I'm satisfied with these with the crop here, and like, you know, we've everybody's friends, and it's a cool vibe that with under the umbrella that I work under. You know, it kind of reminds me of, it's like an old school label in a bit. Like there's a real big camaraderie in the bands they're kind of, you know, that are in the same scene, but they're each different enough and they do their own thing well enough, you know. So that's it. Thank you guys.
Fantastic. It's been a pleasure, man.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.
And we're back. Hope you all enjoyed that chat with Jarvis Leatherby. Really appreciate him taking the time to give us the business, man.
Totally.
Oh yeah.
Video games.
So video games, obviously during a situation like a global damn pandemic, people are at home playing video games because you can only work out so much, and I'm working out somehow less. So I've been playing more video games. What are you guys playing?
Dude, so much stuff. But I will, you know, I feel like my video game section is going to be kind of long. So Ryan, what are you playing?
You know, I kind of got away from first-person shooters for a long time. You know, I used to play Counter-Strike back in the day, like 2001, like on dial-up with 150 ping, and still somehow doing well. And so I was like really into that era of games, and I really kind of got out of it because it's got so twitchy and so kind of toxic. And I played Overwatch for a while. I really like that. But in general, I haven't been super deep into first-person shooters. But that being said, the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare, I think, is actually really good. Even though, you know, it's got some problems with the servers and ping and stuff like that, the netcode. But the new Warzone mode, honestly, being a fan of PUBG, I think that they did the best job with a battle royale so far. It's really polished. It's really smooth. It's really fun. It's teams of threes or solos, and just having that style of game, but with like the AAA studio polish on it and all of the kind of things that they've added, like the gulag and all of the different drops and all the different vehicles and stuff. Like, I'm having a lot of fun with that. So I'm actually putting a ton of time into just the quick play mode to try to like level up my guns and get my different loadouts and do all that. So I'm fully back hooked into first person shooters and being that annoying kind of person that plays those. And I'm loving it.
How is that compared to the Black Ops? Because I remember when Black Ops launched, we played a couple rounds of like the battle royale version of it, and it was okay.
Yeah,
you know,
I liked Blackout. I thought it was fun.
I thought it was okay, but there was just something about it where, to me, the guns didn't translate to that big map. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if Infinity Ward just has the special sauce, but the guns just feel so much better to me in the new Modern Warfare. And I don't know what to attribute that to, but maybe it's just because I spent more time and just got into it. But to me, it feels way better than that last thing did, the Blackout.
I think it definitely does feel way better than Blackout.
Yeah.
So,
and then also I've been watching my girlfriend play Animal Crossing, and then I kind of got sucked into making my own character in that too. And like, dude, I love casual games. Like, oh God, what's the other one? That's
Stardew Valley.
Stardew Valley. Like, I love games like that. It's like relaxing. You have some building elements. There's like some cutesy bullshit. It's all great. So I'm like, oh, okay, Animal Crossing. I've never played one before. I'm like, oh, this will be cool. I started playing it, and the main guy like that you talk to, Tom Nook or whatever his name is like, oh, welcome to the island. You're indebted to me $100,000 or bells or whatever it is. And I'm just like, I just got here. How am I already in debt? Like, this makes no sense. There's this thing called, I heard it referred to as the Nintendo second, where like every piece of dialogue kind of like takes up these extra 2 or 3 seconds that it seems like it doesn't really need to. And it kind of like they don't respect your time. Like it really wants you to like be stuck on this game all day long. And it gives you all these little tasks. And it's a cool game. I'm just kind of shitting on it to be funny right now. But I think it does really like not respect your time. And yeah, go ahead.
You know what's really funny about that? Go ahead, Vince.
I was just going to say the best take I found on Tom Nook on Twitter was that you're not going to find a better deal than a 0 interest home loan that you can pay back at your leisure.
That's true.
So ultimately, he's kind of the ultimate, the ultimate dude. He didn't have to do that. Hey, you want a house? Just pay me back when you can. I don't care.
I feel like he organizes Firefest in his spare time.
But it's also, you're also moving to an island with a strange dude. It's kind of got a cult vibe to it a little bit.
He's like, yeah, just build up all this stuff and it'll be great. You do all the work and I'm just here for the loans, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I haven't played Animal Crossing yet. I have a Switch. I haven't picked it up yet because I've been playing tons of other stuff that I'll get into in a minute. But I've never played an Animal Crossing game. This is like the 4th or 5th installment of the series. It's been around for a while, but I've never played one. And I saw a repost of a tweet that someone made where they said, I recently asked 3 of my friends like what you do in Animal Crossing, and all 3 of them replied with literally just vibing, bro. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what? Like, are you playing video games in the video game? Like, what are you doing in this game? And our colleague Nikki Law at metalblade asked me what I was playing a few days ago when we were organizing some press stuff, and she tried to explain it to me. And at the end of her explanation, she was like, this all sounds really stupid now that I'm like putting it into words. And and I think that's probably the only reason that I haven't played it yet, is that I'm just like, I don't know what, like someone on my Facebook, like just earlier today posted like a scene of like the credits rolling. And I was like, you can beat that game. Like there's a start and a finish. Like I didn't even know that. Like,
yeah,
so
I just started playing it.
It's basically island decorating simulator. You have your house, you can build different things, you mine a lot of resources, and that gets you money to build more things. And you can do like custom things where you make your own patterns. And there actually is a lot of creativity in it. And I think we have an overabundance of games where you fucking shoot people in the face or you chop their heads off. And I love all those games too. But I like that there's other games that are just about being creative and aren't about fighting and killing all the time. I think we have like way too many of those. So in that way, it's
absolutely
cool.
agree.
It's the reason why Minecraft and Stardew Valley rule, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And the closest thing to Animal Crossing that I could think of is Stardew Valley. It's a cartoony Nintendo version of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Stardew Valley is basically like a reskin of Harvest Moon. I think Harvest Moon was like the first, like, hey, you guys want to just like, you guys just vibing? You want to just hang out in a video game, just vibe together, just fucking build your farm, man. Like, whatever, do harvest your crops. It's cool. Do it at your own pace. Don't worry about it. Like, it's a good stress reliever. I can definitely see that, which is funny because that's kind of why I play video games.
Totally.
To like unwind and relax, and like I like a challenge here and there. Like sometimes I'll play games to kind of like test my skills and all that kind of stuff. But
sure,
I mostly just play video games to like check out and like unwind for a few hours.
Well, dude, especially right now, we're all stuck inside.
Yeah.
We can't hang out with our friends. I know a lot of times, me and my friends will get on Discord to like play a game, and we end up just chatting in Discord, and we don't really even want to play the game after a while. And this is like those type of games where you can actually just kind of virtually hang out with other people. Not that there's like a voice chat function in Stardew Valley, but any kind of game where you can just kind of go and chill and do like basic kind of things with your friends. I think especially right now is cool.
Oh yeah, I've been seeing tons of Facebook posts being like, who has roses on their island? And I'm just like, what are you guys talking about? But then I'll see like 30 replies being like, dude, I got white, yellow, red. What do you need, bro? And I'm like, what is happening?
That's awesome.
Yep.
But yeah, I love it. It's great. Well, I've been playing some pretty sweaty games. Speaking of Animal Crossing and how not sweaty it is, I picked up Doom the same day that it came out.
Cool.
Actually, the day before, because in the light of this pandemic stuff, when GameStop still had their doors open, to avoid having like a double midnight release, like, you know, one like for Animal Crossing and Doom the same night, they actually were selling Doom the day before street date. So I picked that up the day before it was supposed to come out, played it on stream for a little while, and it was super fun. And then I played it a little bit more on my own time, and that game is so intense. Like, and I get it, because it's, you know, it's Doom and it's supposed to be intense, and it's just like, you know, high adrenaline, 100 miles an hour, just,
right.
You know, kill. But like, after having played 2016 quite extensively, going into Eternal, I was like, oh my God, I love this so much. The Doom Fortress, it's so cool. Look at all this fan service. And it's like super intense, but it's also kind of like goofy. And it's such a nice twist for Doom. I love it. And then I started progressing through the story, and I still haven't beaten it because of for the reason that I feel could best be explained in this text that I got from a friend of mine, who he hit me up and he was like, dude, I just beat Doom. And I was like, oh yeah, how was it? And he was like, bro, that last level, I feel like I just walked away from a car accident. And I was just like, that sounds terrible. That sounds
stressful.
Like the opposite of what I want from my gaming experience. So right. I hit a couple levels where I was just like, you know, replaying it over and over and over. For those of you who haven't played it, the way that the battle system in that game works, like it's part like platformer, like first person platformer, you know, like map exploration, like there's tons of, you know, collectibles, and it's got some RPG elements and the way that you like level up your character. But the actual battle parts of that game are all kind of like wave-based arena
type
of setups. Like if you've ever played a Serious Sam game,
sure,
it's kind of like a much more polished version of that. It's like as soon as you think you're done, like, guess what? Here's 30 more enemies, and they're all the hardest kind of the wave that you just fought. And it's like, oh my God. And it is so sweaty. It is like
super sweaty. Yeah.
Dude, I'm like white knuckling my controller playing that game. Just like, oh my God. But it's really fun. And if, you know, the whole like adrenaline from gaming thing is your, you know, is your cup of tea, then Doom is amazing. Well, but I've also been playing Borderlands to kind of counteract that whole super sweaty first person shooter thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, having a game like Animal Crossing come out at the same time as that is almost kind of perfect, because you want to go to something completely non-stressful after you're like white knuckling all these levels. So
did you guys see all the crossover memes? All the the Doomslayer and Isabel hanging out.
It's hilarious.
It's amazing.
I still have to beat Doom 2016. I'm stuck on an early level because I can't find a damn blue key card, and I just gave up. So I have to go back to that, and I really want to beat that game, and then I'll think about getting the next one. I just picked up F1 2019 on PC for $17 on Steam. That is fun as hell.
Nice.
I love racers.
That game is super fun.
Like F1 simulation type thing?
Yeah, and the career mode really kind of ropes you in and makes you do kind of really short press interviews, and
that's
you
funny.
can boost your team morale by answering questions a certain way.
Oh my God.
I just really kind of started scratching the surface on that, and that's super fun. But I've been playing the hell out of Shadowrun for Sega Genesis.
Oh yeah,
on my Raspberry Pi, because I never beat it as a kid. It's just I think it was far too difficult.
Yeah.
When I was a child, when I had a Genesis in the 90s. But now with the advent of things like save states, I can actually beat the game, because so much of that game is based on the pen and paper Shadowrun. The stats, I think, are pretty close to the same. And effectively, most everything you do is a dice roll. So the more you level up your characters, the more successful you are with combat and diving into the Matrix in that game. I don't know if you guys have played it.
Oh, yeah.
I have not.
So when you go into the Matrix, you actually have to a turn-based kind of fight against computer terminals and access data cubes to download information that you can either sell or are the objectives of missions. And you have to upgrade your deck that you use to hack into the Matrix. And I saved up enough money to get the best decker in the game in my party, and her name is Rihanna. She's an elf, and she's incredible. And I got her the nicest deck, and just grinded a bunch of money selling data. You know what I'm talking about, Riley, right?
Oh yeah, dude, 100%.
That data buyer and the Southwest Seattle map.
Yeah.
So I kind of leveled up my characters to the point where I'm ready to finally progress through the story and beat the game. But it's one of the more it's one of the only games I know of for the 16-bit era that is really kind of a truly open world sandbox type thing. You hesitate to really call it a sandbox. It is an RPG with a story, but it doesn't handhold you. It gives you notes in a notebook on your, like a Pip-Boy type thing that you just have to kind of figure out. And it's almost like a crime procedural in a way, where you have to go find somebody in a bar, talk to them to get the next clue and things like that. So, for like an 8 to 12-year-old kid, that was just beyond my scope at the time.
Yeah, 100%. That game is a testament to how Sega. Okay, so Sega in the 90s, and even in the early 2000s, was a gaming company that was always too far ahead of their time.
Yeah. The Dreamcast.
Dude, like Dreamcast is what bankrupted them. And it's crazy because it's like they had. Do you remember the Dreamcast controller and how it had that the fucking memory card for that thing was like it had the VMU. It had this, for those of you who don't know, the Dreamcast controller, basically the way the memory card worked was that it was like a tiny little portable like game console. It was like a tiny Game Boy that you could plug into your controller during gameplay. And most games had some kind of functionality where you could load things into the VMU from the game while it was plugged into the controller, and then pop it out and take it with you on the go, and play it as like a nano pet kind of thing. Like Sonic Adventure, for example, had these little creatures that you could raise, much like Pokemon, called Chow Chows, and you put them all into this little Chow garden, and you could like upload certain chows from your garden into your VMU, and then unplug your VMU from your controller, and then like I said, nano pet that shit and like feed it throughout the day and all this kind of stuff. And then when you plugged it back into your controller and looked at it in your Chow garden again, all of its stats were raised. And like to think that a game company was doing shit like that in the 90s is bananas. Like it is totally insane. But the thing about Sega is that like they've always had like a critic, like they always have one thing that's like super advanced and then one critical flaw. And in the Dreamcast, it was that there was no burned disc protection. So you could just go to Blockbuster or Hollywood Video or whatever now obsolete rental storefront at the time and just rent a Dreamcast game, put it onto a burned disc on your computer, and then you just like own the game. And Sony PlayStation had protection against that. Like you couldn't put a burned disc into a PlayStation 1. They had those like black disc protective things. And you could get like a mod chip if you knew someone who like, worked at Sony and had the goods, and it was like it was a whole like different thing. But yeah, Dreamcast just didn't have that. And game companies back then only made revenue off games. Like the console cost was pretty much 1-to-1 to production. So if you're not selling games, like you're totally screwed.
That's something I seem to remember from when I worked at Circuit City in high school, was that consoles, for the most part, them on their own don't make money. They're mostly as close to at cost as they can be.
Sometimes they even lose money.
Yeah, yep. And the money's really made in the sale of accessories, which is why there's so many bundles that exist, and they try to get you to buy extra controllers and things, because that's where the margins exist.
And which is why Nintendo has been on top of the game for ever, because Nintendo's accessory marketing has always been incredible. But Shadowrun is a perfect example of Sega ingenuity with to a fault. It's like, oh my god, this huge open world like D&D-esque game, like it appeals to so many different demographics and all this kind of stuff, but it was, released in the wrong decade. Like if
Right.
Shadowrun came out 10 years later, I think that, it would have become something even more iconic than it already was. But it's like a cult classic, you know what I mean? Like as far as Sega
and,
games go.
the Shadowrun games that are out now, the turn-based kind of isometric style combat games they are cool. I've played them a little bit. But man, how great would a GTA 5 style Shadowrun, that kind of GTA
God.
5 mixed with, it's essentially what Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be, right? But
Yeah, pretty much.
if it's that Shadowrun universe with orcs and dwarves and humans and shamans, where it's kind of this mixed, I don't know, it's just got a really unique aesthetic that I've always really enjoyed.
Yeah.
As far as, it's Dungeons and Dragons and World of Warcraft in the future is essentially what it is.
Yeah. Which is like a nerd wet dream.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Vince, you mentioned you're playing that on a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
If there's people maybe that don't know what that is, can you explain a little bit about what Raspberry Pi is? And we're not trying to promote piracy here, but maybe even how to play some of these old school games that you already own a copy of, but you just want to, play now.
Yeah, because a lot of people I still own a lot of cartridges, but it's either difficult or impossible to play them at this point.
Right.
So what Raspberry Pis are, they have a ton of different applications. They're little mini computers, essentially. They're like $30, $40 online, and people use them to teach coding. A friend of mine uses it to run his entertainment center. But you can install a piece of software called, what the heck is it called? Raspberry Pi.
Emulator?
RetroPie is the software.
Okay.
And within RetroPie, you install the emulators for all the different systems. And there's a lot of resources online for how to set them up. And as long as you're a little bit computer savvy with being able to mount all the files to a thumb drive to plug into the Pi, you're pretty much good to go. It didn't take me a long time to figure it out. But it's also one of those things, too, where I know some friends from college that set them up for people. And not only are they used on TVs and things, but people use them to run arcade cabinets that they build. There's a subreddit on Reddit called CADE, just CADE, where people show off their builds. Some people restore original arcade cabinets with the board from that arcade game with an old school CRT monitor, like tube TV with what was in the old arcade cabinets.
Yeah.
But people also build arcade cabinets with a modern monitor with joysticks and buttons.
That's cool.
And it's run by a Raspberry Pi.
Nice.
They're modern multicades, and it's really cool. So yeah, to have one of those around it's nice for travel. It's, it's a little more clunky than traveling with like a Nintendo Switch or something. But hey, when you travel all over the world and you have to be in hotel rooms, to have something like that, you can HDMI into a TV, and all of a sudden you're playing a version of Tecmo Super Bowl for NES with modern NFL lineups and names. That just rules.
That's awesome.
And they even have like compact versions that you can build out. Like I think they just use, more often than not, just like a PSP shell that you just pop Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's
Yep.
the board itself. You can put in any number of types of housings and shells. There's a bunch of different types. There's one that looks like a mini SNES that's out there that you can just put around it. Because yeah, you're just putting a protective shell around this little board. You wouldn't even have to do that if you don't want to, but you probably don't want a board just laying loose out. So
well, and the great
That's
thing
pretty
about
neat.
it is that even if you have, copies, like I'm a big time, old school retro video game collector, and even if you have copies of all this stuff, like that hardware does not last forever.
Right.
You know what
Definitely
I mean?
not,
Like
no.
even if you have a working, Sega Genesis or old school Nintendo, or even farther back like Atari, and then like even if you somehow have, a very well maintained console, the games themselves are all battery operated.
Right.
So it's like if
Those are
you
gonna
want to
wear out.
save, if you want to save a game, like if so many times I've had copies of like the old Pokemon games for Game Boy or Game Boy Advance, or old Super Nintendo games, that are like RPG save based kind of stuff. even not save based kind of stuff, even stuff where it's just like you have your own file, like the Donkey Kong games or the Mario games and stuff. All that data is retained with like one of those circular like watch battery kind of deals,
Right.
and they're easy enough to replace, but it's kind of a pain in the dick. You know what I mean? Like you have to solder stuff, and you need like a special tool for Nintendo games, like this weird star-shaped screwdriver that is Nintendo proprietary, and so it's like having technology available where you can just kind of, you know, download stuff. And the other thing that's cool about it is that it's like there's all kinds of shaders and like graphic
That's what I was going to
mods
say.
that you can make. And
yeah, the
it's great.
upscaling and the actual interface with a modern TV. I think a lot of those things, correct me if I'm wrong, have gotten fixed on the modern emulation versus. The games probably actually look better now on an emulator than they do
Right,
actually
probably.
actually playing.
They really do. It's,
you know,
it's so funny. There's actually like, it's gotten to a point where there's like purists, right? Like retro game collector purists who things got like so good and so smooth that they were like, man, like I kind of miss
the shitty frame rate and
the like slowdown of like it being overloaded because I'm playing, you know, Metal Slug and doing this like bullet hell kind of thing where there's so much going on that like it like clips you into slow motion for a little bit because it just like can't handle it.
Right.
And so you know, there's companies out there that, you know, do cartridge recreations that like include that kind of stuff in there, so you can pop it into an old school Sega, this like brand new fresh cartridge, and still get those, you know, 90s problems that have since been solved and then, you know, turned back on to give you a more authentic experience. It's cool. The whole retro game community is pretty awesome.
Yeah, we've definitely, we don't want for things to do in modern civilization. This would have been a little bit different than the 70s, I think. So, you know, at least in that respect, we're pretty lucky to have immediate access to just an array of things to do and ways to communicate. It's pretty cool.
Totally.
And hey, like we said before, streaming, as far as I know, is down overall with music. People aren't driving as much, listening. So, you know, don't forget to put on some records every now and again. That's really all we ask.
Totally.
Yeah. If you're playing Final Fantasy 14 all hours of the day and night like me, you know, open up a streaming service. Open up some Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play.
Yeah.
Support some rad artists that are now in a position where we're having to be very creative with the ways that we are keeping ourselves afloat.
And hey, if you had a ticket for a show that was canceled and you got a refund, you know, maybe think about going to that band's merch store and picking up a t-shirt or something. That's still one way to really, a lot of that money goes directly to the band. So, you know, if you have the means to support bands right now and buy merch or vinyl or anything, you know, obviously please do it, because we're all going to want to still go to shows when this is all over. So
yeah, that's about it. We're ready to wrap up this episode of the Metal Blade podcast. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and follow Metal Blade on social media at Metal Blade on Twitter, at Metal Blade Records on Instagram and YouTube. And make sure to check out the Blade Brigade Facebook group, where you can find out about all things Metal Blade and see some cool posts from other, you know, super fans of Metal Blade.
cool.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for listening.
Until next time, everybody. See ya.